But let's take a trip all the way to Iowa, land of Herbert Hoover, because this guy was the first president born west of the Mississippi River. So why is that a big deal? Well, it showed that America was no longer just an Atlantic coast country, but a continental power stretching from sea to shining sea. And no one represented that better than Hoover himself, an orphan turned self-made multi-millionaire turned president of the United States. Not too bad for a small-town kid. But this next president's first is so crazy, it'll never be replicated again, because Franklin Roosevelt is the only president elected to more than 2 terms. And it wasn't just 3, it was 4. Back-to-back-to-back-to-back wins from 1932 to 1944. But here's the fascinating part. Up until FDR, no president had gone beyond 2 terms. Not because the Constitution said so, but because George Washington set the tradition. Washington stepped down after 2 terms and everyone just followed that unwritten rule. However, FDR pulled off this anomaly thanks to the turmoil of World War II. But after his death, Congress got together and passed the 22nd Amendment, capping presidents at 2 terms. But this next guy had a first that the entire world is deathly afraid of. Because Harry Truman was the first president to order atomic weapons used in war. In August 1945, with World War II dragging on and Japan refusing to surrender, Truman made the call. Hiroshima first, then Nagasaki, and launched 2 bombs that ended the war and began the nuclear age. A decision that remains one of the most hotly debated moves in presidential history. Because Dwight D. Eisenhower was the first president to serve in both World War I and World War II. During the first one, he trained tank crews in Pennsylvania, and in the second, he was Supreme Allied Commander, the strategist running D-Day, directing armies, and driving Nazi Germany to surrender. So when Ike ran for president in the 1950s, Americans knew exactly what they were getting, a war hero with steady hands. But then came John F. Kennedy, the first president to participate in a televised presidential debate. Cause in 1960, the whole country tuned into JFK versus Richard Nixon. And on the radio, listeners thought Nixon held his own. But on TV, it was a whole different story. Kennedy looked cool, confident, and camera-ready, while Nixon looked pale, sweaty, and uncomfortable under the lights. The contrast was so stark, it changed politics forever. Because Kennedy proved that television wasn't just a medium, it was a weapon. But speaking of weapons, after JFK was assassinated, Lyndon B. Johnson became the first and only president sworn in on an airplane. And the scene was unforgettable. Johnson with his hand raised, Jackie Kennedy with her blood-stained pink suit, and the staff crammed into the cabin. This wasn't your average swearing in. It was raw, emotional, and a presidential first. Kinda like Richard Nixon, the first and only